What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Halloween episode. We're talking about everything Halloween. We're ready to tell everything, our history of Halloween, our favorite media, just everything that makes us happy, sad, or maybe even scared about Halloween. But first off, I want to check in. How you doing, Caleb? What's up? How's the spooky season going for you?
Oh, dude, it's going phenomenal. Outside of movies and television, my Eagles are 6-0. We're undefeated.
Hey, okay, sick. But yeah, actually, if you notice, hey, we're kind of like in very, very low key, like Halloween, like costumes right now. Like this kind of looks like the Freddy Krueger lady, right?
And I got Billy Loomis from Scream going on.
There we go. Hey, but next year, hey, maybe we'll even go even harder with our costumes. You never know. Maybe I'll come over here with like some prosthetics on my face. That'll be sick.
Dude, that'd be awesome, actually.
Right. Actually, let me pull up my notes real quick. But first off, I do want to ask, so like where does Halloween for you rank in like your holiday tier list? Is this like a S tier holiday for you, or like where is it for you?
Call me edgy, but I would say it's my number one.
Really?
It's my number one. I don't get into any holiday too much, but I feel like this one has to take the cake since I grew up like in an evangelical household, right?
Right.
But I'm an atheist now. That's what I identify as. So I guess that's just my angsty youth Edward coming out saying, "Yeah, the devil's holidays the best one."
I feel you though, low key. Like in terms of holidays, I've never been like a huge like show up and like super be exuberant, like the house is covered in like Halloween decorations, all that shit. But like I definitely there's two holidays where I'm like the vibe is there. One, Christmas. I love like the whole vibe of Christmas, and like even though like going through the retail store and hearing like the same like 5 Christmas songs playing, like just the whole like I have to watch a Halloween movie and a Christmas movie every time those seasons come around. It just doesn't feel right if I don't. So Halloween, like I think Halloween and Christmas are tied for my favorite holidays because I just love the entire vibe throughout the whole month.
Do you know what's a good mediator for films to watch in between the two? Like around the November time frame, you transition into the Christmas movies with Krampus. So you have your last horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one too.
Yeah. I've always had like a difficult time. Like I don't know why, but these like those transition movies, right? Those like holiday transition movies, like you said, Krampus, like even isn't The Nightmare Before Christmas? Yeah, that's like a transition movie too.
Definitely a transition movie.
Yeah, and it's like I guess you could watch them in both seasons, but I never even like thought of like watching it like in November and like in the halfway point and watching it between each two. I never even thought about that. That's a good idea.
Oh, it's perfect because then you get into the vibes perfectly, like a playlist almost.
Right. Actually, speaking of, I know it's a Halloween episode, but it's making me think about Die Hard.
About like the greatest Christmas film ever made. Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. But I did want to ask, so going on to like another topic real quick, I did want to ask like what's your history with Halloween? Like did you always sort of like Halloween growing up, or like you said you were in an evangelical household? How was Halloween growing up with your family?
I guess it was like tame to begin with, like when you're like, in first grade, you're Frankenstein. Like I remember one of the few films that I could watch that was like scary films when I was like really little was literally like the 1930s Frankenstein, 1930s Dracula with Bela Lugosi.
Dang.
So I was like, Dracula one year, then Frankenstein, and I guess somewhere around like the time I was 13, I can watch, shit like The Sixth Sense.
Oh, okay.
And broaden my horizons. So then I wanted to be other things. Not that I wanted to be, totally not dead Bruce Willis. But I guess that was it, like dressed when I was younger, but I feel like Halloween has this special thing to it because it's the time of the year where everybody wants to cosplay. Like you can dog on cosplay all year long, be like that hater, like, oh, I hate those animators. I hate those people that dress up and get into it, but then you're doing it at least 1 month out of the year.
Do you plan on dressing up this year?
Dude, I want to. Guess who I want to be.
My guess is someone from The Boys. I would say you want to be like Billy Butcher. Did I get it?
Yes, you got it. Yes,
hey, that's connection right there. Hey, that's dope. I'm glad I got that. So like,
yeah, I'm trying to talk my wife into being Queen Maeve.
Okay, that's sick. So like, are you guys going to a party, or are you just dressing up just for the F of it?
Well, dude, we're close enough to Seattle. Figure like there's got to be a club or something that
True, right,
everybody's dressing up and you just go have a good
right.
time.
Are they selling like Billy Butcher costumes, or are you just gonna like DIY it, or what?
I think I would do it myself because it's fairly simple. You know, you just need the
True.
jacket. Like I bet it's a bunch of Goodwill pickups. I feel like most of the work is already done, like right here.
Wait, Billy Butcher doesn't have a beard, does he? For some
Yeah, he was
reason.
like, I'd have to trim it down, but yeah, close
Okay.
enough.
You gonna dye it though?
Does he have what?
Are you gonna dye it though?
Oh God, no, never,
Come on,
never.
if you're gonna dress so you gotta go 100%, man. Come on.
No, I would never dye my beard. What if it like my beard starts falling out or something
Shit, that
afterwards?
would be terrible.
It would
Like
be
you
awful.
can just pull it out. Oh, bruh, that would
Oh,
suck.
that's like a nightmare I'm gonna have now.
Well, with my history of Halloween though, it's pretty tricky. So like I don't know why I was so scared of Halloween, but as a kid I was terrified because like I don't know what it was. Like the whole vibe of it kind of scared me, and I can't really place a finger on why. But yeah, like just as a kid, like is like the whole vibe never really sat right with me with like the whole everybody liking scary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to be scared of just a lot of stuff. Like I know there's this one SpongeBob episode where Sandy and SpongeBob are just chilling, and like she puts like a butterfly on his helmet or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then like it's like this really like messed up like view of a butterfly. It's hard to explain, but like if you're around my age, you probably know that episode. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like that terrified me, and just the whole thing of just getting scared just never really sat with me. But over time, as like I started to watch more horror movies, like yeah, now I just love Halloween. I don't know if that's like common for kids to be scared of Halloween, but I don't know. I know I definitely did like the trick or treating and everything, but
I feel like growing into being scared is something that some people do, but ultimately, like what makes human beings kind of special is we scare ourselves on purpose. You know, we
right.
pay $10 to go see the latest Conjuring, and then we go spend
Mhm.
40, 50 in an amusement park to, you know, simulate falling to death on roller coasters.
Right.
Thank you,
That's
baby.
that's definitely a good point. Because like just recently, I don't know where I heard this fact, but like literally humans are the only like species to seek out stuff that can harm us.
Mm-hmm.
And that just creates like eating spicy food. Like, you don't see animals like saying, "Hey, I really want this spicy thing," right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Right.
No
It's like
kidding.
it's crazy how we evolve. I mean, maybe we probably just evolved into that, and we're just the
Mm-hmm.
upper echelon of people. But like,
We
go
go
ahead.
hard though. Like, dude, you know, there's this. I don't know where it is. I gotta look this up. But there is literally a haunted house where you have to sign a waiver
Oh yeah.
because
There's
they like torture you and stuff.
right. See, now that's crazy. Like, I'm sorry. That's like a different level of seeking out that sort of thrill, right? Because like I would classify myself as sort of an adrenaline junkie. Like I would love to go like skydiving, just like stuff like that. But like, I could never like sign a waiver saying, "Hey, we can like touch you and like kind of hit you or some
Mm-hmm.
bullshit like that." I'm like, nah, that's too far, man.
Oh, dude, like some of these without even touching you can be pretty scary. Like I went to a haunted house this weekend with my wife and her friends,
Mm-hmm.
and you know it was pretty, you know, traditional up until we got to this like I don't know what it was. It was like this wall, like with air pumping into it, to where it was really close together, and you had to squeeze through.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, I'm claustrophobic. So coming out of that, like rushing through to get out of this claustrophobic space where there's like 5, 6 people behind me screaming, like, hurry up, please, like it's hard to breathe. Got me terrified. And then
Dang.
I come out and there's a dude wielding a chainsaw. Like that's
Ah,
scary. So
nah.
imagine if they could literally like grab you while you're in there. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
snatch you up. It sounds mortifying.
Right, because at normal Halloween houses, like they can't touch you or nothing, can you? Can they? They
Mm-mm.
just scare you.
No, it just scare you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of scary like moments, right? Do you have like a specific moment in your life that was like super like scary or like spooky? Because I'm sure that since you were in the service that you have like scary moments there, but like if we kind of back it up a little bit, just like spooky, like maybe a ghost
Mm-hmm.
story, like some type of stuff like that.
Okay, yes, I got. All right, the scariest I've ever been. One story, very brief, is I remember being like, you know, 3 or 4 in
Mm-hmm.
what my like kids' room or whatever growing up, and my parents had like this coat rack at the door for whatever reason, and they threw their coat and hat up in there and turned the lights out, and I'm going to sleep, and it looks like there's this dude just standing over my bed all night long. And I remember being
Bro.
like 3, not sleeping because I was just, staring at it, like petrified with fear, thinking it was somebody just watching over me at night or whatever.
Right.
But ghost stories, so I'm going to preface this with I do not believe in the paranormal at all.
Those are the best ghost stories. There's people who don't believe in that sort of stuff.
Oh, absolutely, I do not. I believe there's a scientific explanation for everything.
Okay.
But I saw something that was, if somebody told me this, I wouldn't have believed it myself because I wouldn't have thought these things wouldn't existed, but I 100% saw myself. So I saw I think it's called a weather ball or a lightning ball. It's a weather anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I was a sophomore in high school. So me and my buddy are out at midnight of all times, eating cereal, during the bewitching hour on the porch of his house. It's out in the sticks.
Right.
And I look down the driveway and I see this floating orb of light, just kind of going down the path. And it wasn't a flashlight because I looked, and the reason why it freaked me out is it wasn't giving off light in the traditional sense, you would expect from a flashlight or phone, and it was clearly an orb.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody around it, pitch black, just that thing. And I was like, yo, what the F is that? And my buddy, he's eating, he looks up and he just drops his bowl and runs inside.
Yo.
So obviously I'm not gonna pull a Mystery Inc. Scooby-Doo gang thing and be let's investigate when my buddy dips out and runs in. So I scurried in. We knocked it over in the kitchen, trying to get to safety. But I'll never forget it because I remember the next day being okay, I don't believe in this stuff. So what did I see?
Right. Wait, so how old were you when that happened?
I think it was a freshman, sophomore in high school, so I would have been 16 years old.
Gotcha. Yeah, it is pretty wild. Because because I also have another moment where it's
mm-hmm.
I can't, if you heard it, then you're just what, that I don't believe it. But I have 3 moments. So
nice.
Yeah. So I guess my no, it's see that's what looking back at it, it's I kind of like it just having those sort of stories and just having that moment you can just sort of tell stories with.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's probably not 3, it's probably just 2, because the first one I talked about in our Media That Made Us Feel Something episode, where I talked about Paranormal Activity 1. So I was just super young when that movie came out, and I saw it, and it's if you really think about Paranormal Activity, besides the Blair Witch Project, I feel Paranormal Activity was the next resurgence of the found footage era of Halloween horror movies. And bro, that movie just messed me up. It's sort of that thing where, like you said, when you had your story about being 3 years old and seeing that that trench coat figure or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, that's when the scary stuff really gets to us, because we can almost imagine it happening, and our imagine is basically reality at that point. Yeah. So after seeing that movie, I was just imagining I'm hearing things. And it's hearing bumps in the night. I was bro, this is terrifying. But that's 1. 2 is, I'll ask you a question about this. Have you ever had sleep paralysis?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had it twice. I see the same thing, spiders, because I have arachnophobia, dude. So I see spiders all over me.
Oh, man. Yeah, I've only experienced it once. And I think it was during COVID. And during COVID, COVID was
that
messed
recently,
up.
Huh?
Yeah. And because COVID, I was experiencing, I experienced my first panic attack, which is crazy. Because I never thought I would, because I wasn't stressed or anything, it just came on me. So I was what the hell? But literally sleep paralysis, you're just sitting there and you just wake up, and then the feeling of your eyes open, just looking around but not being able to move is crazy. Because then the next thing, in the logical step is you hear all these stories about the sleep paralysis demon. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking around oh snap, it's a demon gonna come and get me, but thankfully it's all good, and I can finally get up and move, because you're literally fighting to get up.
So that's what you saw, is some type of demon entity?
Well, I didn't see anything. I was looking around to see if it would start coming, and it's I just didn't see anything. But the common thing is what you hear is a sleep paralysis demon, or some figure that people see. But thankfully I didn't, because if I would have saw that, I'm confident I would have got a heart attack. I cannot, because think of just sitting there not being able to move, and you see something devilish in your corner of your room. But I couldn't handle that.
That would suck.
Right.
That would suck.
But I'm kind of interested now. Talk about seeing spiders. You saw spiders when you had sleep paralysis?
Oh, dude, it's very basic. Like it's almost kind of like that Indiana Jones, the snakes everywhere kind of thing. But I remember in high school when I had it the first time ever, I woke up, the stereotypical couldn't move, like felt like a heaviness on my chest.
Mm-hmm.
But I could look down and the blanket that I was on was like up to here. But all over the blanket was like hundreds of like brown recluse spiders,
Oh
like
my
big,
God.
just covered on me. And so, obviously I'm like trying to move, like freaking out. But the second I was actually able to move, they were just gone.
Actually,
Like
right.
it's so scary how your mind plays that kind of trick on you, and you just panic and go through a moment of just pure fear.
Mm-hmm. I remember I wasn't doing research on it, but I was just doing some work and then like hearing like a podcast in the background about like sleep paralysis and how it works, and it's like apparently like I could be completely wrong here, guys, but like the fluid that like helps you like stay asleep is like you woke up before that could dissipate, so like your brain is still in that thinking it's sleep, but you're actually awake. So that's why you can't move your body because you're the whatever like substance in your brain that sort of paralyzes your body so that you don't move in your sleep. That's what because I'm pretty sure it's in REM sleep where you're in that position. So you're just waking up before your brain wakes up. So I'm sure like in a dream sort of scenario like that, I'm sure like maybe your brain was like there's some weird in between of you, like you're awake but you're also in a dream. Maybe like something like that. That's kind of
yeah,
crazy.
that's what I think it is.
Yeah,
that's like your brain's like half asleep or something like that.
Right. But then my last experience, which is sort of like your like floating orb thing, but I will never forget this night. Oh my God, man. This is because it's like I think the scariest part about it is that I can't tell if it was real or if I was like dreaming. So like I had to be, I know I was in grade school. I can't remember the exact age. And it might have been like close to Halloween night or on Halloween, but like I had this like little CRT television on top of this like my dresser. So I'm just watching Harry Potter. Cause like at that point Disney was like playing Harry Potter movies like during the Halloween season. So like I'm sitting I'm like laying down at the foot of my bed. And then I don't know why, but like my head just turned to the right. And then like I just see this like bluish figure walking down my hallway. And like my bed is super close to where the door is into the hallway. So I'm seeing this person walk towards in the hallway, and we're staring at each other. And he stops and we're just staring at each other. The craziest thing is this like figure looks exactly like my friend or my brother's friend's dad, right? And then like so we're just staring at each other. He just like turns his head back to where his direction and just keeps walking into like what would be my bathroom. So I'm sitting there just like frozen, like scared. And I'm like when I finally like unfreeze myself, I look into the bathroom, like nothing's there. And then like I keep wondering to this day because like I can't remember if my brother's friend moved, but like I keep wondering if like maybe like my brother's friend's dad like died or something. But then I don't know why he would be in our house. But then I realized, right, like 10 years later, I'm connecting the dots. Like right where my neighborhood is, there's a cemetery to like not that far away. And actually the messed up thing is like it's kind of messed up to admit, but like so my dad had a motorcycle kind of business, and like he just super into motorcycles and like the whole car stuff. So like this sounds terrible, but we would drive like he would gather the family up and like he would just bring out the motorcycles and we would just drive not on the cemetery, but like sort of like the woods next to it. So it's still low key disrespectful, but just enough to where it's like it's whatever. But like now I'm just thinking about all those connecting circumstances and like, was that actually a ghost or was my like 7-year-old mind just like dreaming it all up? But,
like some poltergeist situation,
right? Because like I don't think I wouldn't imagine like a ghost to be blue. Like so that's like if you hear that, it sounds like Scooby-Doo stuff, right?
Or Ghostbusters, yeah, like you got a call.
Right. So I'm leaning more towards like it being a dream because like I just don't see how like, but it felt so real. That's the thing. Did you feel that? Well, I'm pretty sure since you were with your buddy, like you knew that was like you were actually seeing that, but like.
Yeah, otherwise I probably would have thought it was like a dream. Like, no way, I was up at midnight, like eating cereal or whatever. That sounds like something somebody does in a dream. But no, my buddy saw it, and we were like actively Googling the next day to find out like what this thing was.
Right. Did you come into? Do you have you come to any conclusions on what it was, or it's always just been a mystery?
Yeah, like weather ball or lightning ball, whatever the terminology is, but it's considered like a weather anomaly, like very rare, caused by like overcast and like thunderous weather somewhat in the distance.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. I wonder if it's something I'd ever actually see again. Like if you do see an anomaly, like let's say somebody does see a ghost, right? What is the chance they ever actually see it again?
See the second time? Right. Damn.
Like something that's debated if it's real or not. Like what is the odds of you, like, I don't know, being that lucky or unlucky?
Right. I mean, and like on top of that, right? Like going outside of the ghost realm of stuff, like I mean, we're in the same area. Well, you were in the area of like where the Exorcist was like it's played like what's it called? Like based upon. So it's like at this point, I just don't know if it's like all real or like what's all that about.
Dude, I feel every time I like hear about exorcisms, I get this like really awkward feeling in my gut because my rational brain tells me that these are probably just like very disturbed people. And imagine like how much more it like would freak somebody that's like, you know, either like tormented with schizophrenia or something to like literally be telling them you have a demon or possibly the devil himself is inside you. If they like throw water on you and some dude in like robes is gonna show up. Like I'm sure it amplifies whatever anxieties are going on within that person to the extreme and causes like those outbursts. You know, that you see people that have demonic possession.
Exactly.
Like have.
Right. And then you have like those shows on TV. Like I know Netflix, you know, constantly just spews out like horror stories, sort of like documentary shows or whatever. And it's like, well, actually, would you ever want to go on like a show like that or just like Paranormal Hunters? Do you even think that stuff is real?
Yeah, I would do it just so I could be the cynic there. Be like, I saw the wire on the chair. I got you.
That'd be hilarious. Like, and I feel like every like supernatural show like that kind of needs a cynic, at least for like the comedic value. Cause that'd be hilarious. Just like someone in the back just like, nah, that's BS, bro.
Yeah, dude, the wind did that, you goon.
Right. Well, actually, I want to ask you, like, before we move on to like actually talking about some media here, do you have any Halloween hot takes?
Hot takes.
Like for me, I know my biggest hot take probably is like candy corn is like an S tier candy. I love me some candy corn.
I think that's probably a good hot take because I found out recently that a lot of people do not like them.
Dude, I think it comes down to people just not trying candy corn. Because like all candy corn is just, it literally just tastes like sugar. It's like you just put a sugar cube in your mouth. That's all it is.
I feel like, I don't know, they have like a texture that's almost waxy that's awesome people. And that's probably why they don't like it. Like it's the method of delivery is why people are off put by it. But I love me some candy corn. Like I feel like that's perfect like Halloween food at the movies.
Right.
Because it's going to be quieter than whatever else you usually get in a bag. And it's still going to be delicious.
Right. And like, if someone comes to me and says they hate candy corn because it's waxy, and I find out they eat Twizzlers, yeah, we're gonna have a problem because Twizzlers are like the grossest candy ever. Those like it literally tastes like you're chewing on like a rubber tire or something, bro. I can't do it.
Have you ever had like the black licorice Twizzlers or versions of Twizzlers? You'd never do, would you?
Nah. I mean, I'll try anything actually. So I lied on that, but like. I never liked Twizzlers as a kid. And I generally don't know how people can like Twizzlers. It doesn't have a good taste to it. It's literally like just chewing on rubber.
Dude, it's like indoctrinated into you as a kid because like my dad would give me like black licorice Twizzlers when I was younger. So now I can eat black licorice, but I know very few people that are like, black licorice. It's delicious.
That at first, right?
No kidding.
I could not do that.
A Halloween hot take. I think it would have to be that The Shining and The Exorcist are not the greatest horror films made anymore. They used to be, but that time has passed.
Right. So, do you think some people still think those are like the greatest horror movies of all time? I can definitely see people seeing The Exorcist as one. But
I feel like people only say that if they're one old and they can remember like The Exorcist being the first to deliver scares like that,
mhm.
or if they're younger. I feel like they're trying to be that edgy cinephile, like
Oh yeah,
show how much like I'm a NY film school graduate sucker, that
right.
kind of energy.
Uh,
Uh, but I don't know. I just feel like there's been better horror films made since then. I think it's not even The Exorcist is the one that really needed to be top. It was The Shining.
mhm.
I always felt like The Shining was better because The Shining did something that is still rarely done in my view, and that's build an atmosphere that is just characterized by anxiety.
Right.
Like I think you're like 40, 50, 60 minutes into The Shining before you start seeing like the paranormal activity that takes place within that film, like start to unfold. Like Stanley Kubrick built that up over the course of an hour.
Mhm.
And I think that's, a master class in how to build tension.
Right.
But then you have what's the sequel that just came out to it?
Doctor Sleep.
Technically, yes, Doctor Sleep. If you were to take that exact same concept, like build tension, have a good story, Doctor Sleep does that, but nobody's gonna say Doctor Sleep is the better horror film ever made. I think it's just a time thing. Like we have
Right.
so much content that we can go through that, you in many regards you could say I've seen it all plus more if you watch The Shining compared to anything else, because everybody ripped
Mhm.
off of it to where you can't really revisit it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. For sure. Well, I think that transitions us perfectly into our favorite Halloween, horror thriller sort of media. So I'll let you go first. I'm actually curious, like, now that you said that you think that there's been horror movies that tops, The Shining and The
Mhm.
Exorcist, what are those movies for you? Where was that media for you?
Well, just to go off entertainment value alone, I love the Scream
Mm.
films. They're
Okay.
phenomenal. I absolutely love them. I'm a sucker for slashers. But it's going to sound so ironic considering how much I was dogging on the third one. But I do think Halloween 2018 is one of the best horror films ever made. Like, I really
Gotcha.
do. That should be my hot take, actually. Um, like, I feel like the score, you bring John Carpenter in and you tell, like, Halloween from a little bit of a different perspective. It's
Mhm.
like seasoned Lori, but she hasn't, like, gone through the things we saw in, like, the second, third, fourth from way back when it was all retcon. So it was just
Yeah.
40 years apart. Like, what is Michael Myers, going back to the basics of we don't really know what gives this man his power ability to just like kill all these people. And I feel like it was largely flawless. Like, I don't think you could
Mhm.
ask for like a better experience going to the like cinema and you see like honestly like the perfect Michael Myers film. It was like watching Skyfall, like to James Bond fans, what Skyfall was to them. Like, oh
Right.
wow, this is the perfect James Bond film. I felt like that was the perfect Michael Myers film. And thus like a great horror film.
Mhm. I
But
agree
what
with
about
you.
you?
Yeah, like I would love to. I need to rewatch Halloween 2018. I don't know if I told this on the podcast or this network yet, but like I just really do not like rewatching films or just replaying like anything. I wish I can get over that, but like there's one stipulation though. I could definitely watch it if I can watch it with somebody else, especially
Mm-hmm.
if they haven't seen it, so I can like see their reaction. But like one thing you said about the Halloween 2018 is that like the score was like amazing. Like
Mm-hmm.
hearing that like the iconic Michael Myers or Halloween like theme playing in
Mm-hmm.
the rolling credits, it was like it was it was sick. Like it sounded so dope the way they put that together. But in terms of my favorite Halloween sort of horror thriller media, I would say so. Just like it's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah,
Very difficult.
probably like movie. I probably say my favorite scary movie is still Hereditary. I think,
Hereditary is good.
yeah, I think that movie tells a really like compelling story throughout the whole entire movie, especially on the second. Like, even though, like I just said, I hate rewatching stuff. On the
Mm-hmm.
second rewatch of Hereditary, like, there's so much you can gather in like seeing
Mm-hmm.
things you haven't seen before. Like, spoiler, but like, the end scene of Hereditary, where everything just goes to shit. Like, you see when the it goes from it's like the view of the house in its daytime and it turns to
Mm-hmm.
dark, you see like all the cult members like naked in the forest. And like that's something
Yeah.
I didn't see that in the beginning. And then when I rewatched it, I was like, oh shit, that's
Mm-hmm.
dope. And it's like I think horror really goes in a great place when they pay attention to detail like that. Like I mentioned in the podcast when we were talking about Halloween Ends, how, you know, the way they play with darkness and like sort of like playing with shapes too. If you can really nail that, then you kind of have my heart a little bit, because going back to like the olden days of horror films, which I want to talk a little bit later too, is how much they rely on like jump scares.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you saw like the news of like, there's a Netflix show called The Midnight Club, and then the director won like Guinness Award of having the most jump scares in one episode. Yeah, and so it is the very first episode too.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll get it, but then I'm just like, you just realize how cheap jump scares really are.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
it is cheap.
And it's actually funny because one of the characters in the show was saying like how much, like was sort of playing us and saying like how much jump scares don't really count because they're just like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not being scared, you're just being startled. That's the thing. So, but yeah, like other than Hereditary, one of my favorite games of all time, of course, Resident Evil. I think Resident Evil 7, if you haven't played that, that's like one of the best horror games ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just like the atmosphere, if you guys don't know, like Resident Evil 7 is basically Capcom's attempt to reboot the series in a way to where like it's the first Resident Evil game to be first person. So then, because Resident Evil 6 was more action oriented and people just didn't like that, so you're like, hey,
yeah,
we get it. So we're going to make it even scarier this time when putting it first person, because Resident Evil series has always been in third person. So like just going through that whole adventure like first person, and like I think it's like the Bayou, Louisiana with zombies. Like think of like a more scarier place to take place than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else? Dead Space is a really good horror game to play during, you know, Halloween season. You know, just like those really gory things. But actually, talking about games, do you know the game Outlast?
Outlast, no.
Okay, that's like a whole different other like subgenre of horror games where it's like, because usually, you know, you can fight back in a horror game. The only thing about Outlast is that you're this guy that's breaking into like a mental facility, and all he has is like his camcorder. So he's going around this mental facility, you know, just doing whatever. And then the people start to break out. And like there's this whole supernatural element of this thing possessing, you know, the prisoners or the patients. And it's like it's a genuinely scary game, and I like that. But one thing you can do for a game that will just like turn me off in terms of horror is that if I can't fight back, because like that kind of breaks the tension a little bit. Now I'm just sitting there running away and like looking about like behind corners and everything, and like there's just like super loud noises and all that going on. Like I just cannot get into it. So like I would love to like Outlast, but like I just can't get with that game design. But
so I actually have a good point to make to you, since we're talking about video games and you brought up jump scares just before it. But I would compare like having way too many jump scares to playing somebody in Mortal Kombat that's just button mashing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like the thing is, you can find somebody that's button mashing like I play when I do Mortal Kombat because I can't learn all the moves. Like I just, you know, I'm spamming. But I can end up beating my friend that's actually amazing at the game and that can do all these combos. And if you look at the screen and you're not looking at what we're doing with our controllers, like it can look, you know, really stylish. Right. And I think jump scares are kind of like, you know, my buddy playing. Like if it's good, it's because the jump scare was built into properly. Like everything was set up in such a way that it doesn't feel like that cheap, like I'm not very creative, so I just need to get a reaction out of you so you leave the theater and say that was worth my $10, you know, kind of like an amusement park ride almost. I can't really I feel like maybe Halloween 2018 would be an example, but I feel like there's got to be a few, maybe like The Witch. Like I feel like The Witch has jump scares. But it's built into heavily.
Oh, well, that's what's her name? The main actress. Yes, yeah, that's a really good one. That's really good.
It's phenomenal. I think it's still kind of like her best movie she's made, actually, because you can't count Queen's Gambit as a movie. It's a television show.
Right.
It's the best thing she's ever made.
True.
But elevated horror, like, you know, Hereditary and such like that, I think they kind of have it down in that sense. Because you have like a lot of this downtime where tension is built while telling the story. Like you don't sacrifice one or the other. And I think that's something The Witch and Hereditary does really well. They're more like my friend that knows the combos. Like they come off like that skilled player in comparison to whatever that show is. You're telling me that they're winning awards for just, you know, getting people's knickers in a twist by constantly trying to get them to go, ooh, ah.
Right, exactly. And that's I'm glad you bring that up, because that's another way for like any sort of like horror movie, like scary movie, to kind of win my heart, is when they like build up that tension, and then they get those scares that are very deserved. Like, you know, speaking of like Halloween Ends and how much like it might not be a great movie, but like I really love that scene when like Corey pops out like behind of Jamie Lee Curtis's character, because I think that was just a really creative way to get a scare in. But like trying to think of things that like really deserve. Oh right, Dahmer. That first episode, like I'm not sure if they were trying to like make the viewer scared, but the way like that episode just crawls, and like you just start to see every element of this monstrous guy just like sort of like unfold in such like a natural way. Like when you first see the guy, like he opens his what's it called? His fridge. And you just see like that slight image of like a head under the fridge, and he's like, oh my God, this is getting serious. And just in the episode just keeps going, and like you just feel so bad for this guy that's just stuck in this place, and like he just can't get out. Because like you see, like, and he makes these attempts to get out, but every time he tries, like he just can't get out. And like I think that was a master class of horror right there.
I completely agree with you. Like, it's one of the best intros to any television show I think I've ever seen.
100%.
Because it's so gripping. Like, you use the word crawling, and it makes your skin crawl. Because there isn't a jump scare to, you know, like get you go, oh, Jeffrey Dahmer's coming, you know, nothing like that. It's not completely overt. Even when Dahmer grabs the, what was it, machete? To keep that poor guy like trapped in there. It's not like he grabs it and he's flailing it. He just grabs it and holds it. And I think that was a really good way for the director to show what kind of like a spider of a human being Dahmer really was. Like that he was, you know, in a way less than a human being and more like that, like animal, because it was simply predatory behavior. And that's what got the scares across more than, you know, something jumping out at you or having a really gimmicky Dexter style open or something like that, you know?
100%. And like even going further into that, I feel like there's very rarely few times, like in at least modern day horror movies, even like some back in the day, where the person that these bad things are happening to should serve as you, as like, you know, the viewer, you kind of put yourself in that position. But even like the horror movies like now and back in the day don't really give me that feeling. But the guy, like the victim or the would-be victim if he didn't escape, in that first episode, like, bro, like I've never felt more connected to a person before. And like in a horror movie sense, because like you just see like the close-ups on his face, and you're just seeing how genuinely terrified this guy is, like almost like being crying. Because I remember there's a scene where, like, you know, you see a tear fall down his face. And just like, because you probably just feel so trapped. Like, you know, you see like this like little barrel in the corner, just the way they shot that first episode was I think the best way you can describe it is like really magical in the sense of building horror, because you just see how people just can't do that nowadays without putting in a jump scare. So like I want to give out, like, shout out Dahmer. Like at first I wasn't going to watch it because like you know, moral sides aside, like I don't really like promoting that sort of stuff, even though like, I mean, maybe it's for a good reason, maybe it's not, I don't know. I just think it's just kind of, in a weird way, I just see it as entertainment, and like with something like a Dahmer giving them entertainment with that, just it doesn't really sit right with me. But
it's wild because it's real. It actually happened.
Exactly. You know? And like before we move off of this, of our favorite our horror media, there's one movie I really want to see that I haven't seen yet. Have you seen Barbarian?
No, but I really want to see it.
It's coming out on HBO Max the 25th, and I cannot wait to see that. Yeah, because it has
I don't have to go to the theater for it.
Right. I'm gonna look up the cast real quick. I think Skarsgård is in it. Yeah,
Bill Skarsgård.
I think there's other pretty notable cast members in there. Maybe let me look up the cast.
Dude, his performance as Pennywise the Clown, and it is gotta be historic.
Dude,
like literally. It's gonna be remembered forever, because I think the first chapter of it, I think the one that came out like 2018, 2019, something like that. That's gotta be one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in my life. Like,
really?
it's great.
You know what?
Like,
Yeah, go ahead.
like I feel like what it does is it kind of breaks the traditional rules of horror films. And of course, it did this in the 80s, but I feel like when you're younger, especially like when you're in your teens, you watch a lot of these movies, and past a certain age, the characters don't die. Like children are always kept safe in horror films. And
Right.
it starts out with even like the 6-year-old isn't safe. As a matter of fact, none of the kids are safe because that's what Pennywise goes after. And I feel like when you're younger, that hits a note that sticks with you. So whenever you're older and you watch the remake, it still like plays on those same fears that you have when you watch the Tim Curry whenever you're like 11 or something
Right.
like that, on TV, AMC or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's why that one works
Yeah,
so well.
I feel that. Like, looking back at it, like when did that come out? Was that 2016? I don't think it was that. Maybe 2018. Let me look it up.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm pretty sure it was when I graduated high school. Let's see, it remade. It was 2017. Okay, but yeah,
Wow.
like I've always it seems so far away. Like, geez, but yeah, I've always like looking back at the It remake. For some reason, I've always saw that movie more as like an action adventure horror in a way, because like there's definitely scary moments in it. Especially, I think the second one especially gets into more action adventure because the kids are all grown up and like they're trying to find it, Pennywise and kill him. But yeah, like it always felt more of a adventure film to me than a scary. But it's like it has the horror elements in it. But that's also something I like about when media can do that is like blend together those sort of elements. Like I think there's a movie come out with guy from Dune. Who's the main guy? What's his name?
From Doom,
Timothy,
like the
Timothy
movie
Chalamet. Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a movie coming out with him. It's something. Let me look up what that movie's called. It's not that.
Kind of backtracking, but while you're looking that up, I'm going to make the point that it's going to be kind of odd this year during Halloween because you're going to see a lot of people, I feel like, dressed up like Jeffrey Dahmer because of the Dahmer TV show. And I feel like that's probably one of like the negative downsides is you don't want to glorify an existing like serial killer. You know what I mean? You don't want to. It's not like it's Michael Myers, like a fictitious character. Like it's stuff actually happened, and I think that show really hit like some Tiger King level heights. Like it feels like everybody absolutely watched it. And there's been a lot of conversation around it. Like you go on TikTok and there's somebody giving their spiel about why it shouldn't even be viewed, which I think was great promotion for the show itself. Is, you have a bunch of people telling you not to watch this or it shouldn't have been made. Your interest is like peaked a little bit more. But I think a lot of people brought like some good points. Like, did this really honor the victims as they should be? Did this paint Dahmer in like too good of a light? And I think those are questions worth talking about always, but it's going to be so like it's going to defeat the point whenever the Bitcoin bro from your college campus is dressed like Dahmer at the party next to his buddy that's dressed like Christian Bale's Patrick Bateman. You know what I mean?
Right, 100%. But I'm glad you also brought that up too, because like another thing that makes Dahmer in a way so like even more engaging is how like controversial that whole series could be. Because like we were talking about in the podcast, we're like, do we feel bad for feeling bad for this monstrous human being? And it's like, it causes a lot of debates, like seeing him grow up and being like, well, hey, like maybe he's more of a product of his environment, while not also being like, well, what he did isn't or is like justified because of that reason. Like you can still say like this guy's a monster, but realize that what he went through is just like terrible, right?
Yeah.
But like the movie I was talking about was Bones and All, coming out with Timothy. Yeah, I just saw the trailer I think a few weeks ago, but it's like a thriller romance, but like I think it tends more towards horror in a way. So like I'm so hyped for that movie because like I was talking about with it. Is I love it when Halloween or horror movies can sort of fuse together two elements. So like the action adventure with horror, and now this romance with horror. I'm super excited to see because now I'm a pretty big Timothy Chalamet fan. Not gonna lie, the Doom movie got me. I love that movie. But going into our last topic.
David Gordon Green is in Bones and All.
Who?
David Gordon Green, the director of the.
Oh yeah. Wait, hold on. Isn't he the guy that did what's it called? Was he the one with Blonde?
Yeah, I think so. He's the second billed cast member on IMDb.
Ah, nice.
I don't know.
Nice.
I haven't seen the trailer, but it says he's listed in there as a cast member. That's
Right.
crazy. That dude's in all the horror IPs right now. It seems like Jordan Peele's going to have a little bit of competition.
Well, I feel like Jordan Peele's getting into more like, maybe with Nope was just, I felt more like social commentary. But even then, like, what's it called? Get Out was social commentary, but it was just at a level where it's in that more horror sort of lens more than Nope was. But
well, you just know that Jordan Peele's such a huge fan that he probably has watched everything David Gordon Green's made recently, like watched all of James Wan films, all these like contemporary masters of horror, because I feel like Jordan Peele's the type of guy that wants to go out and make something that those other directors are going to want to see and appreciate as horror aficionados. Like, I feel like he genuinely loves his craft, like so much so that he won't even accept people calling him the GOAT. He's like, hey, John Carpenter is still alive, you know, which is awesome. The humility is like great because Jordan Peele deserves a lot of accolades for Us and Get Out, like a lot.
100%. Well, speaking of Nope since it was being such a huge newer Halloween or horror, I keep saying Halloween films, like horror film, sort of thriller. We want to talk about like sort of the state of horror films and like, I just want to get into like old tropes you miss, don't miss, that sort of thing. So I'm just curious what you think. Like, do you think, you know, these newer horror films are like hitting that mark? Do you think they're regressing? What do you think?
I feel like horror films have been on the same level of progression for a long time.
Really?
You know, I feel like it's getting tweaked where the bigger budget horror films are a lot more like ironed out. Like if you watch It Chapter 2, that's a huge budget horror film, right? And I feel like it was safe in the sense that you knew when you went into the theater that it wasn't going to suck because they put too much money behind a horror film, knowing that, you know, they may only break even because horror films, you know, traditionally do not make hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars. But I think it did pretty well.
Right.
But I don't know. It just feels like it's evolved. It's older. You know what I mean? We've come a long way since Alfred Hitchcock, you know, since Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, you know, those types of films. And I feel optimistic. Like I feel like it's a pretty good run right now. Like we do have people like Jordan Peele out there making films. You know, we just do have like Roger Ebert, I think his name is, or Ebert, guy that did The Witch.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking
about. You know, making horror films. So I feel pretty good about it. Granted, it's just the same gripe I would have with anything. I want more content. Like I want a more diverse array of content always, which this is a hot take. Makes me kind of thankful that some of these old IPs like Scream have been like resurrected to have new trilogies and such. So that way there's never an October that you were like, oh no, there's, you know, only a select few new horror films that are actually worth watching.
Right.
But what about you? How do you feel about it?
You know what? I kind of, I'm 50-50, right? You know, I'm kind of in the camp where I'm kind of sick of remakes and rehashes and like bringing back older IPs. But, you know, like while I say that, while a new remake or, you know, bring it back to the cinema is like a thing, there's also a lot of new, you know, horror content. Like I said, the Midnight Club is pretty decent. I forget what the director's name, but he made The Haunting of Hill House that was on Netflix that went kind of crazy last season. And like the way he makes the director, I forgot his name, but the way that director, oh yeah, and also The Midnight Mass. Have you seen that?
The on Midnight Netflix? Mass.
Yeah. You would love that. Like, yeah, that was really good. I won't spoil it, but it's basically about this very, very small town. And then like, it's hard to explain, but like, it's basically like, this revolves around a church, and this church is doing something kind of nefarious in the background that may or may not be supernatural. So I'll leave it at that. But like, the thing about that is like each episode is like maybe an hour long, maybe a little bit more. And it's like, I think that can work as an hour long, you know, episode, but the way he did every episode was kind of a slug. But it all built up to like a really satisfying like sort of end stretch there. But yeah, like I think it's more so of a mixed bag with these newer sort of horror media. Specifically, like I'm trying to think of everything they're doing like right, but I'm kind of getting into this thing where I'm thinking of like the old tropes that I miss and don't miss. So like one thing I don't miss at all is like the found footage sort of genre of horror films.
Oh yes, I agree with you. I freaking get so tired of that genre so quick.
Because like I'm telling you, like Paranormal Activity, because like you have the Blair Witch Project, which like I would say started it all, but then you had the Paranormal Activity one film, and that spawned like an entire generation of horror movies that did that one thing. So like I'm super glad we're out of that for sure. But also just like I said, with jump scares, I don't think we're ever going to get out of that era because like now just like it's stuck in everything. But like talking about in like tropes that we don't miss, like is there any besides the found footage? Is there anything that you're kind of glad we're out of with horror movies?
Outside of the found footage, not really. Like
Okay.
I've never been a fan. Like I hated the Blair Witch Project. I like Paranormal Activity, but I despise the Blair Witch Project. I found it nauseating to watch.
That's fair. I can see that.
And I think a lot of people have like that similar gripe of those types of films. But you're talking about being like the jump scare trope. I feel like it is getting displaced just a little bit with more stylish directing. Like, I'm gonna go back to it again, but Halloween 2018 had like this long take. It was like a minute and a half, and I can't remember. And it follows like long shots,
Oh
like
yeah.
long takes, and there's something about that that just was so pleasant, like a long take in a horror film, and that's not a jump scare; it just builds tension. So I think elevated horror is something that's going to displace that just a little, but it's always going to have its place for its casual moviegoer because the casual moviegoer wants a few jump scares here and there. They may not want the entire film, they may want a little bit of story, but they absolutely need that excitement to think their money's worth it.
Right, because like I can't remember the last time like a horror movie actually haunted me. Besides Hereditary, I think Hereditary, that movie, because I watched that movie when I was probably like 20, so like fairly recently, and that movie genuinely haunted me. And like the Dahmer first episode, that haunted me as well. It's like maybe my expectations are too high, where I'm expecting these, more horror content to like really make me unsettled. And do you think I'm kind of unfair in like expecting that, or should I lower my expectations?
Oh, this is gonna be.
Because the thing is too, is like I think it's hard to do that. I think it's genuinely hard to build that suspense to where like you're making your audience member genuinely scared and not rely off of what's it called, jump scares. Because like I don't know why I just made the connection in my head, but like I was gonna say is like what's scary is subjective. Because I was also thinking like comedy is very subjective. But like is something that scares you, that's because that's the thing, is like being startled isn't subjective. You can startle someone easily. You can startle a lot of people easily, but you can't genuinely scare a lot of people with the same thing. So maybe that's why it's so hard for them to really do that. And then that's also giving more kudos to Dahmer for that first episode.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up. Like, I'm going to have to dog on us for a second, like just a little bit, because you're pondering this question, and I can't help but think like Dahmer is actually the answer to it. Like that haunted me. There was times where I said, all right, guys, I'm actually going to go to bed. Like, I can't watch, any more of this episode. It's repulsive. It's upsetting, like whenever he killed one of the victims, the death man, like that was just so unsettling and upsetting to me that I was done. Like I wasn't going to watch another episode. I was going to bed for the night. And I don't even think we resumed it for like 2 days after that.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the effect it's had on a lot of people that I've seen on social media. And it's because it was real. Like we were Googling, are there active serial killers in Washington State? How many serial killers are there in the United States at a given moment? Like almost like everybody here in the family was like kind of paranoid that we were going to go get killed by a serial killer after that. But I feel like maybe like being defensive after something like that, maybe it's a good thing for society. I don't know. Like, you know, watch over your shoulders a little bit closer so, you know, we don't like add to any like victims to the world.
Right.
I don't know, but it was unsettling because it was real. The Zodiac with Robert Downey Jr., Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
I remember when I first watched it, I was like 13, 14 when it came out, because I think it's a really old movie now, like damn near like 20 years old, I think. And it's like, and the Zodiac was never caught. And you're like, what? So that dude's still out there? And I was like freaking out. I was like, so I'm going to be at the park with my girlfriend and get stabbed to death by some dude in a mask? Like, like, what do you mean? And I think that's probably what it is. Like, as an audience member going to see horror films, we've seen it all. Like, I just watched Hellraiser and watched somebody get like tortured. You know what I mean? I've seen the Saw films where people get tortured, you know, like that's really intense stuff to be seeing in film that, you know, if you take that back to the 1930s through 60s and said, look at this film and show them Saw 1, like they would think you literally summoned the devil in front of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think maybe we're a little bit numb and it needs to be something so based in reality.
Yeah.
Like kind of how Jaws was. Like Jaws is scary because every time you get in the ocean, you know there could be a shark like right there about to bite your foot off. Like that actually happens to people. You know, people do get killed by murderers, you know. So maybe it has to be more grounded in reality to remind us it's more than a movie. Who knows?
That's a great point. Because like, you know, as a society, we really are so numb to like sort of like the craziest sort of views we can think of, right? Like, you know, as much as people like get access to internet more and more, like the more susceptible they are seeing like some really graphic content that's on the internet. So like, you know, a Saw movie now is like, oh, well, that's just another Tuesday, right? Seeing that sort of content. So like you said, like, but I don't think it's a thing of being set in reality, because I think if that same scene would have been just like some other like Netflix sort of produced thing, but it's just like about some other killer that isn't Dahmer and just completely fictional. I think that scene is just the way they structured it is why that was so scary. And like there's the things that was structured in that series was what made it so scary. But so it is very interesting that you said, because now it's made me wonder if you know, because of grounded in reality, is that what makes it so scary? Because I think that's also not making me sort of, you know, off kilter with it, because like these things aren't considered like horror like films, like horror media. Like it's I wonder what they like, what kind of tags they use with that. I know they caught fire for using the LGBT.
Yeah,
that was like so
like,
stupid.
what a boneheaded move. Like that,
right.
Like somebody said that's not the representation we're looking for. And it's like, yeah, why did they tag it? Like that was like the primary tag. Like I remember when it first came out.
Dumb. Like what like, yeah, literally like a, oh my God, like facepalm moment. But I'm trying to think of like what tags were also used for that series, because like I don't think of that. I thought of it more as a documentary or like a
almost like a drama, really.
Yeah, a little
like,
right,
almost like that. Yeah.
So it's like, I guess that's why I didn't even bring it up and why I respect that so much, because I don't consider it as a horror thing. But yeah, totally, like that face of reality. Maybe that's the key to make it more scary for us. For sure. But trying to think.
Like what could somebody do that would actually like terrify audiences like those iconic films did? Like Jaws terrified everybody. It's the reason why, like, for a long time, like excess numbers of sharks were killed. It's because people all got this irrational fear of sharks, even though the shark attacks are like few in between. Like knowing that it could happen, even if it would be an anomaly, was enough to provoke that fear. So what could you do as a director, as a screenwriter, to hook people like that again?
Right. Because you said that you recently saw Hellraiser, right? Would you consider that scary?
No, because I'm not really worried about finding a puzzle box that opens a dimension to torture demons.
Right.
You know, like I'm not too concerned about that.
Because you said you liked Hellraiser, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought it was enjoyable.
So like, what did you like about it? Because I've never been a fan of Hellraiser. I always saw
like
Hellraiser.
It was just so different than what I'm used to seeing.
You
know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
It wasn't just like a straight up ghost. It wasn't just like a straight up haunting. Like there was a little twist to it that I appreciated. Like they're, you know, like these torture sex demon things. I don't know if they have sex yet. Hopefully not. That'd be worse.
Right.
But it was like some interdimensional sadomasochist.
Right, because I always seen Hellraiser, like, I always like had a slight interest because I like the whole aesthetic of what hell is his name, Hellraiser, the main person.
Oh, it's Pinhead.
Pinhead, right.
Mm-hmm.
He's like one of them. He's like a B-list sort of iconic, horror person. You have the Chucky's at top, Michael Myers, Jason, Freddy. Then you have like Hellraiser kind of sit at the bottom. Like he still has that like little like corner of culture sort of etched out for him. But yeah, I just never was like huge into like Hellraiser. So like watching this, I got like maybe 30 minutes into the new Hellraiser thing. I was like, I just don't. I this whole thing with like the puzzle boxes, like it was so
the
like
beginning
corny.
Was horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible to that film. Like I'm surprised that I didn't turn it off after the beginning because it did get obviously I enjoyed it, so it got better for me at least. But that beginning was rough. Like it was confusing. My wife actually left. She didn't start watching by myself.
Dang, great. It definitely was it was an interesting watch, but any other topics you wanted to touch on, like when it comes to Halloween horror media that we didn't get to?
Are you planning on dressing up at
all? I do want to go to a haunted house. I'll say that, but like dressing up, I don't. Yeah, there's no events right now that I would dress up for, but I want to send me a picture of your The Boys cosplay. It's kind of weird calling it cosplay in like outfits nowadays, but yeah, definitely send me.
Well, it depends on if my wife wants to go as Queen Maeve or not. Like if she doesn't go as Queen Maeve, and I'm gonna be on my lonesome, screw it, I'm gonna go buy a Ghostface costume. Dang. Like it's the 25th anniversary one because I love the IP so much. I might as well get like one of the sick ones. It's actually worth a little bit more than like the cheap Walmart ones that fall apart after like single use.
Right. Well, what did your wife want to be, or did she have like an idea for a couple's outfit?
She said like things that I would obviously say no to, like she wants to go with like fruits or something like that. It's like no, I'm not gonna dress up as like a banana.
Yeah, that's so lame.
Yeah, right. This is like boo, corny babe, like get out of here.
Right, I feel you. But anyway, guys, tell us what you love about Halloween. Tell us your favorite media, all of that. Tell us any scary moments. I want to hear some ghost stories in the comments too. I want to see if if we're the only ones that have those really crazy stories. But anyway, guys, we'll catch you in the next topic episode.